I was finalizing the last few names on my guest list when Mom's text appeared on the screen. Your sister's wedding is the family's priority. We won't be attending yours. No emoji, no hesitation, just a clean cold period at the end. It hit harder than I expected, like the faint click of a door locking quietly from the other side. I didn't reply with anger or questions. I just stared at the blinking cursor, typed, "That's fine," and shut my laptop. A week later, while they were busy getting ready for Chloe's big day, the world learned something they had never cared to ask. My own ceremony had already taken place, under the soft light of olive trees at my $6 million villa in Tuscany. And when those photos started spreading online, the silence from home spoke louder than any apology ever could. Before I tell you how everything unfolded, tap like and drop a comment to tell me where you're listening from, because sometimes the people we count on the most never show up at all. When people ask what growing up in our house was like, I never know how to begin. From the outside, we looked flawless. Matching Christmas sweaters, practiced smiles, the kind of family you'd find on greeting cards. But if you stayed long enough, the illusion cracked. Every story, every achievement, every holiday somehow circled back to my younger sister, Chloe. She was the sun in their little solar system. I was the quiet orbit holding everything steady from the background. I used to think it was normal, the way Mom's face lit up whenever Chloe entered a room, or how Dad turned every dinner into a chance to brag about her dance trophies. When I came home with science fair medals or straight A's, they would nod politely and shift the conversation. Mom always had the same phrase ready. "You're lucky, Esther. Things just come easier for your sister." That word, lucky, always stung. It made every late night and every ounce of effort feel invisible. There's an album sitting in my parents' living room that tells our whole story better than I ever could. Page after page of Chloe, spinning in pink tutus, blowing out candles, posing at prom. I show up once or twice, half turned away or cropped near the edge. When I was 16, I found one photo where I remembered standing right beside her, but in the printed version, my face had been neatly cut out. Mom said it was to fix the composition. I didn't cry. I just stopped expecting to be part of the picture at all. Grandma Helen was the only one who ever noticed. During family dinners, she'd lean close and whisper, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Some people only see what shines the brightest." She had this way of making me feel understood without needing me to explain a single thing. My cousin Rachel did too. She never forgot my birthdays, even when my parents did. But favoritism doesn't erupt all at once. It seeps in quietly until silence feels easier than honesty. By the time we were grown, that silence had become its own language. When Chloe skipped my college graduation, Mom brushed it off as a misunderstanding. When she borrowed money she never repaid, Dad excused her. She's still finding her way. So when that wedding text arrived, I wasn't surprised. It was just proof of what I had known all along. I'd spent my whole life being the flexible one, the one who bent so everyone else could stay comfortable. But that night, staring at Mom's message glowing on the screen, something inside me finally shifted. For the first time in my life, I didn't give in. I stood in the middle of my apartment, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator and breathing in the faint scent of the cedar candles I'd lit to stay calm. My wedding invitations still sat neatly in a stack on the counter, each one written by hand, sealed with golden wax. I had once pictured them proudly displayed on my parents' fridge. Now I could only imagine them lying unopened somewhere, ignored in favor of Chloe's glossy celebration, and yet, beneath the sting of disappointment, there was a strange, quiet stillness forming, an unexpected sense of freedom. For the first time, I realized this might be my moment to stop begging for space at a table that was never set for me. 2 days after Mom's message, Chloe called as if nothing had happened. Her voice was bright and sugary, the tone she saved for when she wanted something. "Can you believe it?" she chirped. "The venue we wanted just opened up. It's the same weekend as yours, but that's okay, right? You're on the West Coast, we're in Boston. It's destiny, destiny." She actually said it, like she'd pulled the words straight out of a Hallmark movie. For a few seconds, I couldn't even form a response. I just listened to the clinking of her bracelets over the phone and realized she was waiting for me to cheer her on. "That's wonderful, Chloe," I said evenly. "Perfect timing," she laughed. "I knew you'd understand. You've always been the reasonable one. Reasonable. That was the role I'd been cast in since childhood. the steady, composed one, the problem solver, the person who held everything together so she could fall apart. The next evening, Mom called. Her tone was soft, careful, the kind she used when she was about to hurt me but didn't want to acknowledge it. "Sweetheart," she began, "about the wedding dates. Chloe's fiancé's family can only manage that weekend. She's very emotional right now, and it would mean so much if you could be flexible. Flexible. Another word they loved to use whenever they wanted me to sacrifice something." "So," I asked quietly, "you're asking me to move my wedding?" There was a pause. "We just think it would make things simpler for everyone." "You're so independent, Esther. You'll understand." The irony nearly made me laugh. "Easier for everyone, for them, for her." Not once did she ask what it might cost me. "Mom," I said slowly, "you promised you'd be there." She sighed, long and weary, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "It's not about taking sides, honey. It's just logistics." That word, logistics, hit harder than I expected. It was my entire career, the thing I'd built my company around. To me, logistics meant fairness, precision, and integrity. But in my family's world, it was just another name for betrayal. Later that night, I called my father. His voice was calm, detached, the same tone he used whenever he wanted to sound rational. "Izzy, you know how your sister can be," he said. "If we don't go, she'll take it personally. You've always been the strong one." I bit down on the inside of my cheek until I could taste blood. "So it's my job to understand again?" He said nothing. I ended the call before I said something I'd regret. For a long time, I just sat there in the dark. The only sounds the low hum of the refrigerator and the steady tick of the clock slipping past midnight. The light from my engagement ring caught the counter's edge, scattering faint reflections across the wall. Tiny shards of something I'd tried too long to keep together. And in that stillness, it finally became clear my family's cruelty was never loud. Their weapon was absence, leaving me out of photos, out of conversations, and eventually out of their priorities altogether. All my life, I had been conditioned to mistake silence for love. But not this time. I closed my laptop, opened my travel bookmarks, and clicked on a listing I'd saved months earlier. A stone villa tucked deep in the Tuscan countryside, surrounded by rolling groves of olive trees. The photos shimmered like a dream, golden sunlight spilling across terracotta walls. If my family wouldn't show up for me, I'd create something they could never overlook. The next morning, I booked a one-way ticket to Italy. No grand announcement, no text in the family chat, no tearful goodbye, just a single decision made quietly, entirely my own. When the plane descended over the Tuscan hills, the world below looked softer, almost forgiving. I rented a small car and followed winding roads lined with cypress trees until I reached the villa I had only admired from behind a screen. It was older than I'd imagined. Its stone walls glowed the color of honey. The shutters were sun-faded and cracked, and the olive trees stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The caretaker, an older man named Signor Rossi, handed me a heavy ring of keys and said in careful English, "This place waits for someone who truly sees it." And for the first time in months, I felt seen. Inside, Rachel called first. "We heard what happened," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "Aunt Judy told everyone Chloe's wedding was the main event. We're done pretending. Send the details. We'll be there." Her voice cracked, not from pity but from loyalty. By the end of the week, flights were booked. Grandma sent a short message that made me cry. "I've missed enough real love in my life." "I'll be in Tuscany, my dear." Soon after, a group chat popped up. Its name, The Real Family Table. Photos of passports, packed suitcases, and laughing emojis filled the screen. For the first time, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt chosen. And somewhere between the scent of plaster and the silver leaves whispering in the wind, I realized this wasn't revenge. It was revelation. The morning of both weddings dawned under the same sun. Two worlds spinning miles apart. In Boston, the air hung thick with humidity and nerves. The ballroom sparkled under chandeliers, but tension rippled beneath the surface. Rows of chairs at the front stood empty. Mom waited near the entrance in her lavender dress, smiling too brightly, pretending not to see the missing faces. Dad checked his watch, his phone, and then the door, again and again. Maybe their flights were delayed, Mom whispered, her voice brittle. But no one was coming. Inside, Chloe adjusted her veil for the 5th time as her bridesmaids hovered nearby. "Where's Grandma?" one of them whispered. "Didn't she always sit in the front row?" Chloe's smile faltered. "She must be running late," she said, but her voice cracked before the sentence finished. The photographer shifted uneasily, nudging the guests into new positions to make the room appear fuller. "Maybe bring everyone closer," he suggested softly. "Sure," Chloe said, forcing a laugh, though her hands shook as she gripped her bouquet. Across the ocean, under the same sun, the rolling hills of Tuscany shimmered, sunlight bouncing off the silver-green leaves of the olive trees. The villa glowed like a painting, stone walls entwined with climbing vines, lanterns swaying gently in the breeze. Beneath a canopy of grapevines, the long table was laid out, candles flickering, wildflowers spilling across handmade clay plates crafted by local artisans. Rachel's children darted between the trees, laughing as Eli plucked chords from his guitar, testing the melody of a love song. Grandma Helen sat in the front row, holding a small olive branch she had picked that morning. "A symbol of peace," she explained. I paused inside, gazing out through the open doorway. My wedding gown was simple, soft silk that caught the warm afternoon light, unadorned but perfect in its quiet elegance. Lucia, the chef, and now a dear friend, tucked a sprig of olive leaves into my hair and whispered, "For truth and for good fortune." When I stepped outside, a breeze lifted my veil from my shoulders. Guests turned their faces toward me, bathed in golden sunlight. Grandma rose first, her eyes shining. "There she is," she murmured. And for the first time, I truly believed her. There was no orchestra, no rigid choreography, just Eli's guitar, the rustle of the vines, and the steady presence of people who had chosen to be there. As I walked down the aisle, I thought of every empty chair that had once symbolized absence, missed birthdays, overlooked graduations, silences mistaken for peace. Here every seat was filled. Every gaze met mine without hesitation. The officiant, a local friend of Lucia's, spoke in lyrical English. "Love is not measured by the number of invitations, but by who answers the call." The words sank deep. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't read from a script. My vows flowed naturally, like breath. "To those who show up," I said, voice steady, "this love is for you. For those who believed in me before I could prove I was enough. For those who stayed when it was hard, when it wasn't convenient." Rachel dabbed at her eyes. Grandma nodded, her voice barely audible. "That's my girl." As the ceremony ended, applause filled the courtyard. Not booming, but warm, heartfelt, alive. Laughter mixed with the scent of rosemary and truffle butter as Lucia opened the kitchen doors, revealing platters of handmade pasta and roasted vegetables. Lanterns flickered overhead as twilight painted the sky violet. It wasn't flawless. It was real. Halfway through dinner, Rachel showed me her phone. "They're talking about it already," she said, half laughing. Photos were spreading through family group chats, candles glowing, the villa bathed in golden light, the long table under grapevines, Grandma laughing with Eli's arm around her shoulder. Within hours, the images reached Boston. In the hotel ballroom, Chloe was posing for her couple's portrait when a bridesmaid gasped, scrolling through her phone. "Wait, isn't that your family?" "They're in Italy," Chloe replied, frowning, snatching the phone. On the screen, a photo of me and my husband beneath the Tuscan sky, lanterns glowing behind us, our family gathered around the table. Grandma holding her olive branch, Rachel's kids tossing petals. Chloe froze. The photographer lowered his camera, unsure. The murmur started quietly, then spread like wildfire. "Isn't that Aunt Marianne and Uncle Ray?" "I thought they were supposed to be here." Mom leaned over Dad's shoulder, eyes narrowing at the phone. "What is this?" she whispered. Dad's face went pale. "It's Esther's wedding," he muttered. Chloe's breath caught. They had gone to hers. Mom didn't reply. The silence stretched, heavy and louder than any argument could have been. Guests shifted in their seats, some clearing their throats. The band tried to fill the tension, but even the music felt hollow. When the officiant raised a toast to family unity, no glasses lifted. Meanwhile, in Tuscany, laughter spilled through the villa's courtyard. Lucia poured wine into glasses, smiling as she said, "Eat, drink, and remember why you're here." Grandma leaned across the table and held my hand. "I've waited a long time to see this, Esther," she whispered. "This is what family should look like." The evening deepened into shades of gold and violet. Someone started a slow song, and barefoot guests danced on the stone floor. For a moment, I wandered toward the olive grove. The air smelled of wood smoke and lavender. The villa glowed behind me, alive with warmth. My phone buzzed on the table, missed calls, messages, unread voicemails, but I didn't touch them. I didn't need to. Back in Boston, Mom's voice trembled in a voicemail. "Esther, how could you do this to us? Everyone is talking. We looked like fools." I listened the next morning, sitting under the same olive tree where I had said my vows. The sun spilled amber over the hills. I pressed play once more, then deleted it. Humiliation wasn't the punishment. The real lesson was that I had moved forward without waiting for their approval. The photos continued to circulate online, shared by cousins, reposted by friends. Grandma raising her olive branch became a quiet symbol of our reunion. No captions, no explanations, just truth. For years, they had cropped me out of their pictures. This time, I didn't need to fight for space. I had built my own frame and filled it with light. The week after the weddings, Tuscany grew still again. Lanterns were taken down. Laughter faded, leaving only the warmth of what had been created. The long table stood empty, scattered with dried petals and wine stains, a reminder that something real had happened here. One morning, as I packed away the last decorations, my phone rang. Mom. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something inside me said, "Answer, not for them, for yourself." Her voice trembled. "Esther, do you know how embarrassed we were? Everyone at Chloe's wedding is talking about your little event in Italy. You made us look heartless." I drew a slow breath, sunlight crawling across the floor. "I didn't make you look anyway, Mom," I said evenly. "I just let people see the truth." There was silence on the line, then a shaky sigh. "You've always been so cold. We were just trying to keep the peace." Before I could respond, another voice cut through. "Grandma's. Judy, that's enough," she said firmly but calmly. "For years, you asked this girl to shrink herself for your comfort. Now she stands tall and you call it cruelty?" "No, my dear. That is freedom." Mom said nothing after that. The call ended quietly, like a door closing without a slam. I stepped outside into the olive trees swaying gently in the breeze. Lucia appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Everything okay?" I smiled faintly. Better than okay. "It's finally quiet, in all the right ways." She glanced at the long table and whispered, "Then eat, señora. You've earned it." That evening, I placed one last plate at the head of the table, the chair that had always been empty. I tied a small olive green ribbon around it and murmured, "For the girl who once waited to be chosen." The wind moved through the vines like a gentle sigh. For the first time, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt free. As the sun slipped behind the hills, I poured a glass of wine and thought of Grandma's words. "Love isn't management. It's showing up." She was right. You don't need to fight for a seat at someone else's table. Build your own, and the right people will come to you. If this story resonates, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes the quietest revenge isn't humiliation, it's peace. Hit subscribe for more stories like this.